Добрий день, я вітаю всіх.
Good morning, dear friends. I want to thank everybody who joins us. My name is Oleh, and I'm delighted to greet you at Ukraine Media Center. Today, we have invited you about the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. We will be talking about international consensus, security risks, and about the liability of the occupiers. Joining us in the studio is Oleh Korikov, head of the Ukraine State Nuclear Regulatory Inspectorate and Chief State Inspector for Nuclear and Radiation Safety. Good morning, Mr. Oleh. Good morning. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes. So just recently, a couple of days ago, we've heard a statement of the Director General of IAEA, Mr. Rafael Grossi, who was saying that Russia agreed not to recommission the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant until the end of Russo-Ukrainian war. So let's talk about this resolution, this consensus on impossibility of relaunch. What were the preconditions for this decision, and what really does it mean for the nuclear power plant, for its existence and operation? Thank you for this question. Well, I would like to remind you how we came to this condition of the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant that exists for the time being. The cold idle, well, Russians started their attack on the night of 3rd to 4th of March 2022. The Zaporizhia nuclear power plant had 4 of its 4 reactors operating, then 2 of them were suspended, 2 kept operating, and then as the security of the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant was degrading, one of the reactors was decommissioned, and then in August 2022, the last reactor was switched to cold idle, and then one of the reactors was kept in the hot idle mode to consume the heat, and then now all of the 6 reactors are in cold idle mode. Well, it was happening gradually as the situation was degrading, the security situation was degrading in the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. As we know, there is no electric power supply, which is mandatory for nuclear power plant. Now, for more than a month, the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant is only connected to Ukrainian grid using only one area line, and because of the active combat operations around the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, the Ukrainian personnel doesn't have a physical access to this spot where the line was damaged, and thus Russia exposes Zaporizhia nuclear power plant to even more bigger threats. Then we don't have an uninterrupted water supply because the Russian military, they've blown the dam of the Kakhovka water reservoir, and now it just ceased to exist. Meanwhile, the water was drawn from there for the consumption of Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, and the level of water in the cooling pond is still falling. The level of water is about 14 meters at with the standard level being at 16 meters. Then there is a deficit of personnel who were properly trained and were licensed to work at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Then the radiation monitoring system significantly degraded. As we know, not all of the posts, not all of the system gauges are in operation, and the data is not being transferred in a live mode to IAEA and Energoatom, who is the proper owner. Also, there is no proper technical service and maintenance of the equipment. It has really nothing to do with the radiation safety and security. The scheduled maintenance is being omitted. For example, the general overhaul is supposed to be taking place once in 4 years. Now this period has expired and the works were not done. Then the emergency readiness and response degraded significantly. There is no approved emergency plan which can be fulfilled properly to manage any emergency situation. Then we have 6 reactors with the nuclear fuel loaded in them, and it's been staying there for longer than the standard period of the fuel that is supposed to be staying in the reactors. We have to take care of all of those matters. The plant is being transformed into a military base. It's stuffed with personnel, material, explosives. In fact, it's transformed into a bridgehead that is used to exercise attacks, to launch attacks against the territory under Ukrainian control, against the cities of Marhanets, Nikopol, and other cities. Also, we have information that there is a drone training base deployed there, and a lot of other information. IAEA don't have a full access to all of the systems and equipment which are crucial for the security and safe operation, and we don't have full information about the condition of the systems and equipment. Moreover, the access of IAEA was prohibited to those areas where the explosives, weapons, and military material were spotted, and this is the situation for the time being. But in order to recommission the power plant, all those things, they need to be rectified, they need to be adjusted, all of the problematic spots need to be covered, the full inspection of the equipment should be taking place, and currently we're not seeing any preconditions, we're not seeing anybody doing anything of that. Those security deficits, somehow bringing them into order. And IAEA agrees with us, as well as other experts, as they get familiarized with the situations. They don't see any preconditions to recommission at least one reactor. That's one perspective, and yet another perspective is that all of the specialists, they realize that recommissioning a reactor would create risks and threats that are incomparable to those that we are facing now, because the temperature of active zone will be growing, the temperature of the nuclear fuel will be growing. That will lead to the risk of emergency, something similar to Chernobyl or Fukushima. That would be my answer. So there is consensus as to Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, and it's called idle operation, and it's based on those things that I've just told you about. However, in the media lately, there were rumors that Russia is preparing to recommission the power plant. For example, in May, New York Times has written that the Russians are building aerial lines in the occupied territory of Ukraine. They want to get the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant connected to their grid. So in your opinion, what are the grounds for such rumors, if we understand that it's physically impossible due to a number of reasons that you've just mentioned? Well, there is such a slogan that some may be using now, fake it till you make it. So even if it's impossible, you can keep talking about it and to create some information waves in order to create some manipulations or other things. So what's really happening? There are no preconditions to recommission the power plant. First of all, it's connected to Ukrainian power grid, and Ukrainian power grid is connected to the European one. So there is synchronization with European power grid. In order to get it reconnected to the Russian grid, they have to fully disconnect it from the grid, which is extremely dangerous from the perspective of nuclear and radiation safety and security. IAEA are aware of it, all of the experts are aware of it, and I don't know to what extent is it possible when there are permanent threats existing in the power plant related to the combat operations. Well, when it comes to the safety and security in the power plant for the time being, who is in charge of compliance with all those safety and security standards? So whose liability is it now? Well, thank you for this question. Liability is a very important component. In fact, Zaporizhia nuclear power plant is Ukrainian property. It's in Ukrainian territory. Ukraine has done a lot to make sure Zaporizhia nuclear power plant can be operated under highest safety and security standards. It was commanded by IAEA back in the day. It was reflected in their reports of their missions to Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. So it's a proven fact. I mean, the level of security that was achieved thanks to the efforts of Ukraine during the times of its independence. That's the first thing. And secondly, in compliance with the resolution of the United Nations Organization and pursuant to all of the regulatory documents, is the territory of Ukraine, and Ukraine is liable for security at the nuclear facilities located in the Ukrainian territory. It's a part of Ukrainian obligations it has undertaken within the Convention on Nuclear Safety and Security, on Convention on Handling of Nuclear Waste Fuel. So in fact, it's Ukrainian responsibility, but again, since the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant and part of the territory of Ukraine is occupied by the aggressor, in fact, Ukraine has no access to these facilities, and it deprives Ukraine of possibility to exercise its obligations under the convention, because we don't have physical access to the facility. And we're seeing here a big role, a big window of opportunities for international organizations such as IAEA, to bring those who have the actual control in compliance with the requirements. So those who have control are supposed to ensure safety and security to exercise such obligations. So basically, we are liable to bring back the control, and we see the role of IAEA as part of this process. They are the ones who can help bring Zaporizhia nuclear power plant under the control of Ukraine, under the control of Ukrainian relevant agencies. Mr. Oleh, I cannot help but ask about the personnel. Are Ukrainian personnel in Zaporizhia nuclear power plant while it's occupied? So what is the situation with them? Thank you for this question. In Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, there is personnel who, under the pressure of the occupiers, signed the contracts, and they exercise direct control. They take part in the control of the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. These personnel, they experience incredible pressure, as well as their families. It's difficult to add anything here. I was starting my career at Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. I know some of the colleagues personally, and it's very difficult for me personally to comment this matter. Really difficult. Well, the latest situation with Iran, we have a couple of questions about it. So, how did the situation with Iran impact IAEA? Did the organization start operating in more of a balanced manner? And what does the situation tell us as Ukraine? Do we have to take some additional care of the security? Thank you for the question. That was quite a resonant event. And first of all, the condition of the environment around those facilities that were under attack, I mean, in terms of radiation safety, has not changed. There is no increased level of radiation. Secondly, we've built a model and relevant calculations about the possibilities of spreading of the products that were located in such facilities. They're spreading into environment and possible impact on Ukraine. And I can assure you that the longest radius of pollution of the territory is the border. I mean, towards Ukraine is the border between Iran and Turkmenistan, and further, we're not seeing any pollution that could result in invoking any countermeasures, specifically when it comes to Ukraine. And then what we're seeing, I'm not sure, maybe there will be some changes to the situation, but in fact, IAEA is acting on behalf of the member states, and when they have agreement with other countries, it looks like the member states agree to something with another country, and then one of the member states who acts on behalf of IAEA, they start acting contrary to such agreement. You know, it's a legal case, let's put it like this. Well, first it happened to Chernobyl and then Zaporizhia nuclear power plants, when there was a strike on the safe confinement when Chernobyl nuclear power plant territory was under occupation. Well, those all things need to be analyzed, and I think they should be given certain legal assessment from the perspective of international obligations of member states, from the perspective of nuclear safety and security. But again, in our case, for Ukrainians, so there's no concerns for us. The radiation nuclear consequences are not going to reach us. Well, thank you. We understand that Ukraine ends up under constant shells of occupiers. This is no inclusion. And at the same time, I would like to ask you about the safety and security situation in our other nuclear facilities. What is the situation for the time being? Thank you for this question. The nuclear reactors in the territory under Ukrainian control are staying in different modes of operation. There is a maintenance campaign underway according to the schedule of scheduled maintenances. Well, I would like to add that the security condition is upgraded. The loitering munitions are being spotted in the territory, in the territories that are technically no-flight zones. We report such cases to international institutions and Ukrainian government. Well, there are emergency trainings. For example, there was an emergency training taking place in Khmelnytsky nuclear power plant according to the training schedule just last week. We're analyzing the results and we'll take them into account in our reports. This week there will be an emergency training at Chernovoda nuclear power plant in coordination with IAEA. We're taking part in this. Our information center, our resources are involved. So basically, we ensure certain level of emergency readiness, emergency response in case of necessity, and basically we take all necessary measures on operation, on safety and security. According to the procedures, IAEA representatives are present in all of the nuclear facilities, including Chernobyl nuclear power plant. They report to their center, to their headquarters on a regular basis, and we're getting positive feedback. Thank you, Mr. Oleh, for this information. Dear colleagues, do we have any questions on the floor? If so, please let me know. Well, I'm seeing we have no questions on the floor. Mr. Oleh, I would like to thank you for this broadcast. Thank you for joining us. Let me remind you, joining us was Oleh Korikov, the head of the Ukrainian State Nuclear Regulatory Inspectorate and Chief State Inspector for Nuclear and Radiation Safety. We want to thank all of you for joining us, and we want to thank the security and defense forces, thanks to whom we can hold events like this. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes.